We walked the halls of PCA together, learned the focusing approach from Mr. Lee, sang the school song, laughed, cried, and moved on to the next chapter of our lives. But once a lion, always a lion. Thanks for making time to re-engage with your PCA family. We want to know what God is doing in and through your life. I'm Alex Bellamy, class of 2006 and Director of Alumni Relations. Welcome to another episode of our alumni podcast, Life Talk.
All right, we are here with Mr. Joel Rutherford and Miss Pam Hurt, and we are going to talk some fine arts today.
We're talking all things fine arts.
Yeah.
Well, we're talking...
All things?
Well, okay, not all things.
Right.
Not all things.
Art, band, choir, pom, theater. Choose one.
Yes, we are talking about theater specifically. And Joel, I know a lot of our alumni know how you got here. But I don't know if a lot of our alumni know your background, Pam.
Some do.
Okay. Can you tell our alumni
Not
a little
enough,
bit?
though.
Now, how far back do you want me to go?
There you
Well,
go.
how did you get into the
born
whole
at an early
theater
age.
world?
Well, I got my undergrad in theater.
Okay.
And then I got my master's in communications, which was a focus on theater. And I was working for a while, doing like with a casting agency, doing theater type stuff, like summer camps. And then my sister moved here, and she told me about a school. And I was working at Katie's studio, too, when I came here. But she told me about a school that was starting, Prestonwood Christian Academy. And so it happened that I went to school, undergrad, with the principal at the time, Todd Klingman.
Yes.
Yes. And so then they were going to start, all kinds of electives. But the first year, it was only after school.
Okay.
So they had karate, they had dance, they had theater. But it's funny because some of the kids that ended up, going through the whole theater program, I had them in second, third, and fourth grade after school originally. So went way back with them. And then, so then I think it was 2 years after I was doing that, I came on part-time. I taught journalism and speech. And were you in any of those classes?
Assistant,
No.
too?
Okay.
Didn't you like...
Yeah, it was Paige DeLeon's...
administrative assistant?
Yeah,
or
just
something?
kind of, yeah. So I would do that in the morning, and then
Yeah.
I would go over in the afternoon go teach speech and journalism. And then he promised me the next year we would start a theater program. And so we did. And then that year we had our first show, which was Your Good Man, Charlie Brown.
Was
And
this at the Arapahoe
Yes.
location? Okay.
Yeah.
yeah, so we were there, and they had a cafetorium. And I was like, this is not going to work because you can't really bring the lights down. And so we were over here for a school. We brought the whole school over for something at the church. And we went by, it was like the old, it's a PowerPoint now, but it was the old student ministry.
Student ministry.
Sure.
Yeah.
The big chain link fence.
Yeah. And so I was like, well, this looks kind of like a theater. Maybe we could bring, the kids over. So we bussed the whole school over, saw that first show. And then the evening we had it for the public. So that was it was year 2000. Was our first show.
Wow.
Yeah.
Crazy.
Good Man, Charlie Brown featuring Mr. Jared Monk, right?
Jared Monk is Charlie
Yes.
Brown. Yeah,
Hello.
it was funny because it was a cast of 6, but the school was small at the time.
Yeah.
I mean, we probably only had a couple, not even 200 in the upper school. And we had 75 kids try out.
Oh, my
Seriously?
word.
A lot of kids
Yes, for
to
6
have
parts.
6 parts.
And I just picked 6 parts, because small show. Because I thought I don't know what kind of talent we have, and I picked a show that I knew would be funny no matter who said it because
Right.
it was Peanuts characters,
Yeah.
and so it was just amazing, But at this time, not a lot was being offered,
So now we do a fall play and a spring musical.
Yes.
How do you pick them? And have you ever repeated one?
Oh yeah, recently in the past probably 5 years.
Okay.
Yeah, we've started repeating.
I mean, do you,
maybe 3 or 4.
this may sound crazy, like this is from a non-theater person, so most of the questions are going to be stupid, but just...
We've come to expect that.
Yes, but just help me out, right? Do you look at a show based on the talent that you have, or do you ignore that and just say, hey, here's a great show, we have to have this?
No, you can't go just on this is a great show. There's a lot of great shows I would have done, but you have to go with what your talent is.
Okay.
And really, it's the kids that are going to come back for every show. So you base it around that talent pool.
Okay. So like Campbell, who's going to be a senior next year, you're probably thinking about, right, Campbell Panetti coming in as his senior
Well,
year.
that's what we call our extras.
It's funny you should say that. We're thinking about Campbell for this year.
we need more males is what I heard.
And I need
Yeah.
you to exert some fatherly influence in that area.
Does he have a pulse and is he a male?
We'll take it.
We'll take him.
Yeah, that hasn't always been the case, but yeah, it's always
Okay, but
we
you
need more voice.
you really do look at the students that you have, and then say,
Right, and
how does
then
the
you're
show
hoping
fit?
for more that
Okay.
would come along.
Okay.
And so, yeah, you wouldn't want to pick a show and not have any idea who could come and, play those parts. And ideally, that you have a couple people
Right.
that could handle
Who
each
are-
role,
who are
so that
trying
it's
out
not
for
like
things and
yeah, because
competing against things,
I've never
right? Yeah.
been one to precast, so I
Right.
like to know that they could come to the audition and win the role, on their own merit.
But
Okay,
you
you
have
say-
a general sense of who's
You say
out
you've
there.
never
Yeah.
precast. I love that, right? But have you ever had a student that you just said, this would be an ideal role for this particular student?
Sure. Well, that's with your seniors, right?
Yeah.
You look at that and you think, what is your seniors? The seniors that have been,
Yeah.
doing shows for a while, and you think, well, is there a part, that would be good, for the ones that really kind of, stand out? So yeah,
Very good, yeah.
that's
Don't
my
worry about the phone.
I don't know if that was mine or not.
One of the things we want to talk about is over the years, right? Some of the things that you've seen, you've watched, you've experienced, right? That would just be fun memories. And so, Joel, you mentioned one of them, right? The Crazy for You happens
Oh,
to be
yeah.
one of Joel's greatest memories. So,
It's the one that bubbled up the first,
what
but yeah.
what happened? Tell us about that particular show.
Well, I always say, I tell people who are coming and working on the, like parents working on it, because we would not be able to do half of what we do without the parent help. So I just say, just be prepared. The real show is what happens behind the scenes, not what's going on stage.
There's definitely two shows going on. Yeah.
Definitely.
Wait,
but-
okay, what do you mean by that?
Well, it's just, we've always trained the kids to be very professional on stage. And you come on stage and you're prepared,
Okay.
and
Sure,
they do that,
sure,
right?
yeah.
But behind the scenes, they're still kids, right? And so they could be very focused and professional on stage, and they come backstage, and, that's where all the drama happens, right?
There's a
And
lot of activity.
That's what I mean.
There's a lot of
yeah.
activity backstage.
Not like
yeah.
negative drama, but just kind of, like activity.
It's the second part of the story. Like
Right.
when we did Little Women downstairs, and the kids were running around with wireless headsets, and my son actually was calling the show. He was like, "All right, Luke, bring on the table now. Okay, Luke, or Jiminy, whoever,
Jiminy.
do this, do that."
Right.
And the comms went out,
Yeah.
and it was a wireless thing. And so Pam is sitting in the corner watching the show. She sees Joshua leap out of the room and go sprinting around the room behind the curtain.
That's right.
And like the comms were out, he couldn't call the show anymore. They had to just do it.
Do it.
And so
Yeah.
they were running around
Mm-hmm.
like behind the curtains, and everyone's just watching the show. Oh, it's Mia Dorset.
Yeah.
I love this show. Yeah. Well, astonishing, and they're like running around like chickens with their head cut
Yeah,
off.
and that happened once at the Eisman too. The comms went out, and they had to teach the stage managers how to do signals backstage with their just inaudible. You had no voice because the headset was out, so they did different hand signals to keep it going.
Hilarious.
Yeah,
Wow. Yeah, I don't even think about that,
yeah,
right? All the other activities that go into it. I mean, you've got, right, the orchestra that you're conducting.
Well, and
I was thinking of the Music Man, the first one, when
yeah, right, with My White
the
Knight.
flop sweat.
So, yeah, if you're conducting the orchestra and a kid makes a mistake on stage,
Yes.
like if the song is this long,
Right, and they
like I
drop it
remember
out.
Lindsay Prowse, love Lindsay Prowse, incredibly talented. She went from like here to here,
Yeah.
like she skipped like 60 measures in the middle.
And the song is not the same. Nothing repeats.
And like the orchestra doesn't know, and they didn't have the song lyrics written under the clarinet part. So I'm conducting, and we go 125, 126. I'm like trying to call out measure numbers without drawing attention to myself, and they're like, "What?" And they're jumping around, and
Yeah.
she's finishing the song. We're like, "Oh, great,"
It is a miracle that
But I
it
mean,
pulled it off.
yeah, no, that's a. But back to Crazy for You,
Back
and
to Crazy
slap
for
that
You.
bass.
Yes. Okay. So, you tell the kids they stay focused on stage, right? And you should not be making up your own lines because you're not funnier than the playwright. You're
That's
not
true.
funnier than the book writer. You just have to do what's on the script. Everybody expects the same show. But the only time you should improvise is if you get into trouble on stage. If something could go wrong. That's live theater. It happens.
Reed
And
Corbin?
Yes. And he was
Go
the
figure,
king.
right?
Like
Go
he was
figure.
somebody that I would say on stage, if anything went wrong, I would trust him completely. The set could fall down around him, and he would still be able to carry on. Well,
Soldier on.
he not only did he look kind of silly in that, he had this big, kind of like Duck Dynasty beard, and in this show, he was this old cowboy. And so he had, there's a song called Slap That Bass, and so he had this big bass,
Like a big upright string bass.
Yeah. Well, as he was playing it, the head of it snapped off, so all the strings start dangling on the ground. And he's like,
It was a disaster.
so I could see the kids were really trying to focus because they know they have to stay in character. But it was almost a moot point because he was just like, and he runs off stage. I'm like, and I'm sitting in the audience and way at the back, and I'm like, where is he going? What's
and I'm
going
conducting. Like, well.
And so in the other part of the show, there was a guitar. So he goes and finds that backstage, and he comes and he's singing "Slap That Bass"
With a ukulele. It was very funny.
And so that was one of those moments. But there's been many. Yeah.
And then our bass player spent the entire intermission putting the string bass back together.
Yes.
Oh, boy.
Yeah.
That was a blessing.
Yeah. It wasn't his fault. It just kind of snapped off.
Yeah.
So.
I know, terrible question. Favorite one you've done? And I don't mean favorite one from the standpoint of, the best performance, but just from front to back, you just went, that was really cool.
Well, I mean, there's so many. I mean, there really is. I can say that. Honestly, there's so many, and there's so many different performances that stand out. I think if I'm talking about creative, collaboration,
Sure.
that I always say, and people know, this is Romeo and Juliet, when we did that on a chessboard, and acted that.
We were talking about the Romeo and Juliet publicity.
Yeah.
Show poster?
Yeah, the show poster, and how you kind of got into a little bit of trouble with that one, because Romeo and Juliet were a little too Romeo
They were
and
looking
Juliet.
at each other in the eyes, and they had to be
Very
looking at the
amorous.
camera. I don't know. So it was your sister that was the designer for that, I think, right?
I think Madison did do
I
it.
think. Yeah, I'm not sure when she started.
No, the poster wasn't her fault. No, we're
No,
talking
no.
costume, right?
Yeah.
Costume design, yeah.
She somebody did. I can't remember who did that one. I wish I remember. But anyway, it was they were looking at each other in the eyes, and they wanted to look at each at the camera because it, is
Need a
Romeo and
little
Juliet.
room for the Holy Spirit in the middle.
That's
what
right.
we have.
But yeah, that was a great show because we had students involved in costumes. We gave them a set, budget, and they would design it and for each character. So like, they might have had like 4 or 5 characters each, and then they would design the costume plot, and we would meet with them regularly and check in with them and see how that was going.
Yeah.
So that was fun. So that's when I think of that as a all-around creative collaboration. That one kind of comes to mind. But there's been so many that I enjoy.
Since we're talking about Paulettes and troubled students that you had,
That's right.
Troublemakers.
troublemakers, right? Jenna Paulette. I mean, you've had some incredibly talented people.
Oh, yeah.
That have been part of your performances.
Oh, for sure.
What do you remember about some of those individuals?
Well, I mean, Jenna was one of the most hilarious people, and Madison too. They both have they just would keep me laughing backstage.
They really feed off of each other,
They
too.
do, yeah. And they had their impersonation of the Grinch was the big,
yes.
very funny, yeah. And so, it was just kind of off stage, they were so, talented on stage. But Madison was really involved in the theater marketing, and then she moved to on stage and did that kind of stuff too. Jenna was in, so many shows from, I don't know when her first one, Fiddler. Yeah,
Because
Fiddler.
we were all in Fiddler, I think.
Yeah. Oh, you were in that too.
Even I was in
That's
that
right.
one. That was the one and only show
That's right.
I ever did.
Yeah, I know. I had you in theater classes, but yes, that's so funny.
What do you mean by like all the girls?
Yeah,
Not
Garrett
Garrett.
never did.
No, Garrett never did any.
No, we
But,
couldn't get him. But yeah.
Madison was one of the little girls, and Jenna was a character. I don't remember what she was.
yeah.
And then I danced in it.
Nice.
Yeah,
So we were
that's
all
been
in
so
it.
long ago. It's
High
like
point.
Yeah.
almost 20 years ago.
Yeah.
It was a very long
Did you guys
time
ever
ago.
get your check for doing that for the Paulette family?
Oh, no.
That one was over in the church
It
choir
was.
room.
It was in the
That
church
was before
choir
we
room.
moved to the Eisman.
I think it was probably one of the first musicals.
Yeah, the first one we ever did was Jurgen Man Charlie Brown, which is a small musical, but that was the first
Big one.
with an orchestra and everything. Yeah.
It was great.
So yeah.
Any that you were disappointed, not to say disappointed with the characters, but like disappointed with how well it kind of went off, or just...
No, I mean, I think they've all had their. I mean, the only thing I think they said that still haunts me is Beauty and the Beast. We had it was when the Beast transforms, and so it went perfect all through the dress rehearsals, and we had it all, and it should have gone. But it's one of those like, when something goes wrong, then other things happen.
Sure.
And so I think it was the first performance. Something. Like you could see the whole thing happening. Like there was something happening. So we
Like a door got stuck.
there was a
open
light or
something.
something. We never really figured out why. But then the next night the hair and makeup people said they couldn't see anything, so a crew member brought a light back there. Well, then the second night it lit it up again in a different way, and they thought they had accomplished it, and it didn't. But
what they did was show their hand, yeah.
Exactly.
The final show, did it all work out?
The last 3 shows, it was perfect,
Okay.
yes. But so it wasn't a show, but just a moment. I'm like, if I could go back and redo that again, I just, it didn't have to happen that way. But, things happen, and we just roll with it.
Yeah.
In terms of disappointments, when COVID hit, we were getting ready to do
Oh,
White Christmas.
oh, yeah, that's a big
So
one,
that was
too.
a huge disappointment. Of course, we're doing that again this
As
year.
you say, which is coming back.
Yeah, but
Okay.
COVID, we had the whole thing cast, and we had rehearsals already begun, and then COVID hit, and we just kept waiting, and maybe we can, and then it all fell
Yeah.
apart.
Mm.
And then, another thing that
yeah.
kind of stands out to me, when we did Mary Poppins, Pastor Graham came to one of our shows,
Oh,
and there was a
yes.
fire in
Yeah.
the theater. Of all the shows we've
Yeah, it
ever
wasn't
done.
All
just
the
a fire
shows.
alarm.
There was a fire downstairs in the theater, so the fire alarm went off, and right before intermission. And so, what happens when a fire alarm goes off? Everyone kind of sits around like, is this for
this
real?
real?
Do
Yes.
we really have to
Yes.
go?
Yeah.
Usher
And
going to
then-
come in? Or,
Yeah, well, they shoot everybody out, and then we never got to do the back half of that show, so that was kind of a bummer.
Yeah. That was unusual. We've never had that happen. So.
In terms of shows we have repeated, the Music Man, 2005, we repeated that up here somewhere.
Yep.
And
Godspell.
Godspell, which Pam and I, one of our favorites, love that show. Harrison Ross in the first one, and Chris Silverberg and your sister, and Lindsay, and all those people. And we did that recently. And then we've also done Little Women again.
And
So-
The Importance of Being Earnest. That was another one.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah. That was
But
repeated.
yeah, those are the repeats.
Yeah.
Good stuff.
Fun students to work with. Just memories.
Well, the Paulettes, for sure.
Well,
That's
clearly.
very, yeah. I will say that probably the funniest person in all PCA history to me was Natalie Williams. Like, she could make, and I think everybody
Yes.
who was with her and that would agree.
Really?
Like, she was just,
Okay.
she's just super funny. She just had a real, easy sense of humor, and they would come in and, hang out in my office and, talk about different things. And it was just very, very humorous time period with that group.
When we did the Drowsy Chaperone, for me that's a standout show. I love that show. It was one of our shorter shows. Did it have an intermission?
I think we did not. I don't think we did. 'Cause,
Well, anyways,
yeah.
I love the music in that show. It was a real kind of big band, jazzy kind of music. And I remember hiring a couple of trumpet players from UNT that were in the 1 o'clock lab band, and they just ripped on that show. It was awesome. But Nick Daigle,
Oh yeah, so funny.
hilarious. And then, what was it, Will Thomas and Ben
Stidham.
as the...
You were just all around.
And then Terry
funny.
Rogers was in that show. I mean, if you want some knee slappers, that guy was in there. Watching Nick Daigle kind of drag Terry kicking and screaming through his scenes.
I told Nick memorize
Hilarious.
all of his lines, make him feel like he pulled it off there. Yeah.
Yeah. Well,
But-
you've had different staff, adults, in the
Yeah.
shows.
Yes.
How has that gone?
It's gone well. I
Okay.
mean, yeah, typically have more of the male faculty because
Right.
we're
and
usually
the,
short.
and the one-liners.
Yes,
Right?
Yeah.
exactly. Yeah, so.
John Klingstead as I remember him mimicking playing the piano in what was that? Was that?
42nd Street.
And people would say, is John playing the piano?
Yeah.
Michelle? He was just
Hidden talent.
Yeah.
playing and I remember Wendy Morris being so excited to be in a play. And did she ever get a line?
Yeah,
She got a
well, she
line.
could tell you what it is. 'cause
Wasn't it
she-
something about taking somebody's order for something?
What do you have?
What do you have?
What do you
There you
have?
go.
Yeah.
What do you have?
So, yeah.
And now, you guys are always behind the scenes. You've never been in a show on the...
No.
Okay.
Well, okay, so I was kind
like,
of in a show
no.
when we did Seussical. Do you remember when we did Seussical?
Yeah.
And we came back from the intermission,
Uh-huh.
and Buddy, as a cat in the hat, had gone out and started the orchestra. Do you remember that? That's how we came back from the intermission.
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
Everyone's like milling about, and
the orchestra
Buddy,
starts playing.
He walks out.
That was part of the
and
thing.
he
yeah.
sneaks through the crowd, and he gets over to my conductor spot. He picks up my baton, tick, 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 and he starts the orchestra, right? And so everyone's like, what's going on? And I come out through the door. I'm like, of course, I yell at him, hey, what are you doing? And he's like, he drops the baton, and we
Yeah.
run off on stage and have a pretend fight behind the curtain, and then I throw myself on the floor, which actually screwed up my wrist to this day.
Really?
Oh, yes.
Wow.
But I think that would be the closest that either one of us has come to actually being on stage in something.
Yeah. But we've had so many great students through the years. just so many that have. I mean, feel like not naming enough, but there's been so many that have just contributed. And I always say that, it is what it is today because of the legacy of the alumni that have come through the years, because they put so much work and they just had such a great work ethic, and they worked hard, and no one wanted to be that year to mess it up.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, totally.
And so it was just a legacy of excellence all the way through. And students will be students. I'm sure as adults they probably look back and like, oh man, if I could do that again, because I don't, who doesn't do that? But they were just, they're a great group all through the years. It's just been great.
Well, take a look at the wall and pick out one or two that just have a really unique memory for you.
Well, yeah, Man Who Came to Dinner was that one is, and that was funny just because of what happened. Because they were so focused, and they knew that they don't break character.
Okay.
That's the big thing. You only, like the thing we talked about before, you improvise to get yourself out of situations. Well, that was the show that we had issues with the hair and makeup, right? We had Tony Reed was the Sheridan Whiteside, and so his beard, he sweat so much, the beard and mustache would just melt off his face.
Oh my goodness.
And our hair and makeup, they were so awesome, they just called professionals. What can we do? How can we get, because it's essential that character have that.
Yeah.
And so, so that was a problem. And then Lindsay Jones, she had this wig, and so she has a scene where she falls on the ground and she, is crying and screaming on the phone. Mm-hmm. Well, the wig came off. I don't know, it wasn't probably secure tight enough. And so it just fell back and caught on her mic cord, so it looked like a tail.
Nice.
Yeah. But they stayed in character, but I could just tell they were wanting to burst laughing but I appreciate the fact that we were just laughing so hard. I was laughing hard, but they were going to finish that scene. It was a dress rehearsal. It wasn't actually in a show. But that always stands out as just something that was like just gut laughing.
Yeah.
So
I don't think, like for our plays, I usually run audio, I run the sound, and I don't think I've ever laughed harder than laughing at Lindsay. Not even in that moment, but just as in her character, there's a point in the show where she's dragging herself across the floor, like some wedding announcements have been sent out and they shouldn't have been, and she's trying to call somebody, and like someone just told her they're out. She's like, no, she's like screaming and like an animal on the floor, dragging herself towards the phone, just screaming, no! Yeah, and I'm up in the booth just laughing my head off.
And then I think it was
so
Elise
funny.
Ellery and Will Thomas were in that scene with her, I think. And they were, I could tell he was always on the edge. They stayed in character the whole time. I don't know how they did it, because I really couldn't, because I was laughing.
You know what else made me really laugh? When we did Hello, Dolly, there was a scene in Hello, Dolly where Hunter Hall's character, what was he?
Horace Vandegelder.
There you go.
Yeah.
See, the names.
I'm impressed.
Horace Vandegelder. He is like sitting, like he's on trial or something like that. He's in a courtroom, and Avery Rudd is over at a table, like just leisurely feeding herself a dinner.
Mm-hmm.
That's right.
And the whole
unbothered
the jury
by the whole thing.
is like sitting there just staring at her, just shoving these marshmallows in her face and just like. Just like enjoying this meal, just having the greatest time. Yeah. And they're just sitting there just staring at her like, really? Mm-hmm. Hilarious.
Yeah.
Hilarious.
Yeah, it was a good show.
In terms of a standout too, Molly Claire Matthews is now
Yes.
professional touring with the Sound of Music internationally.
Yes.
So she's in China right now
Yeah.
doing the Sound of Music International
That's so
Touring
cool.
Company, which is pretty awesome.
Right.
She's done well. And in terms of professionals, I see Danielle Kastner up there from the Miracle Worker and a couple of different things, and she's a
She had a
playwright.
personality.
Yes. Yeah. I always appreciated her once when she was in her senior year. We had a big show, and someone with the Eisman was trying to talk to me. We had a little kid that was, that was in the cast, but he was trying to get my attention. It was probably something very simple.
Right.
And I heard her out of the corner I saw her out of the corner of my eye, and she was saying, is there something that I can help you with? You don't need to bother Miss Hurt right now. And so she took care of that situation. And so she was great at kind of mentoring the younger ones. And so I just appreciated that kind of leadership, that, she was doing what she was supposed to do. So she had the authority to kind of to help teach them how they should, when they should interrupt and when they shouldn't. And so anyway, she's great.
Speaking of people that needed help, we did Beauty and the Beast a number of years ago, and there's a lot of strange characters in Beauty and the Beast, and so Rebecca Birkenmeyer was the chest of drawers. She was like
the dresser.
The dresser,
Yeah.
right? And so she had an outrageous thing that she had to get into. It was like this.
yeah,
It was like a
wooden box.
Yes, a wooden box, right? And so I remember we were rehearsing, and we took a break. And so I got up and I started walking around. I walked backstage and I find Rebecca standing there backstage and she's crying. I'm like, Rebecca, what's wrong? She's like, I can't get out. She couldn't get out of this thing. I'm like, Rebecca, let's figure this out. Let's get you out. Because she was stuck and like there was nobody around.
It's like that scene from, was it Christmas Story? You know, he's like, it's just
She
cannot
was stuck.
move.
Couldn't get out. Hilarious.
Now, you've had great technical theater people that you've gotten to work with.
Oh, yeah.
How has that gone? And you know, at the Eisman, now you've got a new black box theater. Like,
Yeah.
what's all that?
Well, we have a kind of a stage management training program, and we've had students through the years who've been trained, like Stuart Stevens when he was here, and he comes back, and he helps train our stage managers. So, you know, the ASMs, the assistant stage managers, they work on each side of the stage, and they receive calls from the production stage manager. And really, I say, once we get to performances, they run the show.
Yeah.
You know, they make the calls, they are doing light cues and doing backstage cues and scanning the stage. It's a really high-pressure job. And so we've had, you know, many students that have kind of come through that, and, you know, some of them enjoy it, you know, more than others and want to continue, you know, doing that.
David
But,
Smith is
yeah.
teaching it, right? Or is he working in it?
He
What's
was. Now
doing?
he's in getting his master's.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
And so he, I just saw him in study hall one day, and I know Dr. Craig talked to him as well. I'm like, hey, you should do tech theater, you know, and yeah, and then Dr. Craig kind of mentored him in tech theater, and then he was a production stage manager, and then he went and studied it at Baylor.
At Baylor, yeah.
And then now he's getting, I'm not sure where, but I think it was University of Houston that he's
He's
getting
down in
his,
Houston, yeah.
yeah, getting his master's in it.
My son did it for a couple of years.
Yes, he did.
That was it.
Yeah. Well,
He's not getting his master's in it.
But he helped fly Mary Poppins.
That's
he was part
right.
of that crew.
Mhm.
We had students that did that, and so that was the first time we'd ever had flying in a show, was Mary Poppins.
Was
so.
it three? I think there was three people. One controlled the up and down, like would pull her up. One would
The back.
control the lateral back and forth, and then Joshua was the one that would rotate her.
Yeah.
And he had the job of, but they all, like the ZFX guys, these are the same guys that do Gift of Christmas. They came in and trained our boys on
Yeah.
how to run that system. And so every show, you've got a safety check you have to do. You have to check your lines and make sure it's all good, and do like a test run with
Yeah.
a sandbag and stuff.
I remember that show, there were alumni in the audience. Of course, they'd never seen that in one of our shows.
Yeah.
And they came to me at intermission like, I couldn't believe you did the flying. They were so excited that we'd had a show that had the flying in it. So.
Is it fun when the alumni come back and
Oh,
watch
yeah.
the shows?
It used to be a
That's
thing
pretty
where they would all come on Saturday nights. Now they come, like, they spread out
Yeah.
throughout the week, those who come back. And then sometimes we're going to do a dress rehearsal where we'll have our alumni come.
Get him back there for the
Yeah,
final
that'd
dress
be,
rehearsal.
That would be great, yeah.
I love it. I love it. It's exciting.
It
I mean,
is.
the theater program, right? What you guys have done over the years, I mean, has just been remarkable. Not only the people, right, but the performances you've put on. Just job well done for all that you've done.
Yeah,
Thank
I'm
you.
hearing a lot that I didn't even know existed. Like the fact that students put on the entire show. So
Yeah.
that's really cool.
Yeah.
It is amazing to watch a kid who really kind of hasn't found their place in the world. They're just kind of lost and drifting, and you wonder what's going to happen with that guy. And then they'll find theater, and they'll find that pocket of people, and they're like, okay, this is my home, these are my people.
Yeah.
I don't know why I think of Macaulay Hopper kind of like that. He kind of showed up as this quiet, awkward little dude, and man, he like became an
In his
anchor of that
middle school,
program.
yeah.
Remember him in Into the Woods as the baker, and just. And I'm looking
Romeo
at him
and
in Romeo and
Juliet,
Juliet.
yeah, it's great in that.
You remember in Romeo and Juliet, he had like what did you call that?
Butterfly
knife?
knives, yeah.
And like a butterfly knife is just like, that flips out a real funny way, and I mean you can hurt yourself, but he figured it out, man, and he was like flipping that thing all over the place, and he like embraced that character. I tell
Yeah.
you what.
It's really cool.
One
Yeah.
thing we always do with our seniors is we have them lead devotionals during our show week, and it's so interesting when the younger kids who are in the show, and then they get older, they say, I remember when I was young and saw, Madison Paulette, giving, a devotional, and I just said I want to do that. We hear that almost every show.
Yeah.
And so that's such a great thing, I think, when you see kids that, they start off, middle school kind of squirrely, and then they, kind of grow into leadership. And I think theater helps that because it teaches a lot of great things,
And it is one of the unique programs in the school that, like, when we did Sound of Music, we had 4th grade all the way through 12th in one big production, so you've got little young kids interacting with our seniors, and when would they ever have that opportunity? I remember Logan Doherty as Maria, like, building pretty strong relationships with those lower and middle school kids.
And Molly Claire, really when she just have it sit at dinner and just have a bunch of little kids.
Avery Rudd, too.
Yeah, Avery Rudd. They kind of passed down that legacy.
Yeah. And you talked about Reese Moore in Seussical.
Yeah.
Because how old was he when he was in that?
6th grade.
6th grade?
He was just young, and he really hadn't. I talked to Laney about it a bunch. How he really hadn't found a spot, and so he really I saw like Reese. He was in my honor choir. I said, Reese, you should try out for Seussical. We were probably having lunch at Fuddruckers sometime. Like, Reese, you should try out for the show, and so he did, and he was JoJo, which is a huge part in that show. And then I'm like, hey, Laney, would you help me with microphones? That's probably when she started helping with microphones for the show. But they came to see a dress rehearsal. Having Noel, Reese is in the musical. Good for you, Reese. I mean, good for you. We'll come and see. Not realizing he's like one of the leads of the show. And so Lainey sits in on one of our rehearsals, and she's watching, and Reese is like in the center of everything. She's like, Chris, you got to buy tickets for this show right now. She got on the phone, and you know what? Who was Horton the Elephant? Same deal. Nate Jones. They had no idea.
Really?
I mean, Horton the Elephant, one of the leads of that show. And they didn't know. They didn't realize. And then I think Mark came to watch the show, realized, oh, my gosh, so calls his wife, buy tickets right now, fly Lindsay in, fly Alex in, or whatever, So, but Reese Moore, of course, Reese is in medical school now down in Houston, doing awesome. But it's funny when we get those kids in those young ages, sometimes they'll stick around. And so Reese and Logan Doyle
brought a lot of his friends with
Jeremy,
him, and they all came to auditions.
Jeremy Horseman, they kind of jumped in together.
Like a group of like 8 guys, and they stayed from middle school all the way till the time they graduated.
And they're better men for it.
They are.
Amen.
Yeah,
I love it. Did Timothy Crisp do one?
He's done
he did a lot.
bunch.
Yeah.
Speaking of, he's doing a show right now. He's doing Sweeney Todd with the Repertory Theater
I just
Company in
remember him as
Richardson.
really being super talented and
He is.
very funny.
Yeah.
You know what I was thinking about just the other day? What was the show? I think it was Singing in the Rain, where Timothy and Zach and Paige Price did that big dance where they ran up on the couch and the couch flipped over. Do you remember that?
Yeah.
That was like an iconic.
Good morning.
An iconic choreography moment from the musical that they had to recreate, and of course. I'm conducting the orchestra and Lord, protect them as they do the couch flip tonight. Protect,
In tap shoes, over a couch,
But that was, of course, Paige Price is running one of the chapters of NTPA right now, North Texas Performing Arts. She's doing awesome as well, and her husband working at the North Campus.
That's awesome.
Wow.
Good stuff.
Man.
Good
I know,
stuff.
Alex, we could reminisce with them for hours and hours and hours.
Yes, I think we could really keep going.
Any last questions you have for them?
No.
No?
No, we talked
covered a
about
lot.
so much
Yeah.
today. It's really cool to see. I was here in the early days of the program, and just to see where you guys are now. And we've talked about so many students that have come through the programs and how successful they are today.
Well, you think about a student that came through the program and is successful now, Jenna Paulette, back in the early days, and of course we were at the Grand Ole Opry a couple months ago watching her make her Opry debut. That was pretty awesome.
Most of the success that Jenna has had, I think, can be attributed to
Absolutely.
what you guys have done.
I would agree,
100%.
and I think she would agree with that too.
Absolutely.
I think even just her confidence.
Yeah.
You could see that shine when she was here. So,
Yeah.
definitely owe that to the PCA Fine Arts program.
Well, it's a blessing to get to serve in this way.
Yeah.
Well,
And,
any last word to our alumni who are listening?
Yes.
Because I know they love you guys.
Come back and see us sometime.
Come back and see us.
come
We
back
will
and see
have that
us,
opportunity.
Yes.
We'll make sure they know about it come the time for White Christmas.
Yeah, a lot of them do. We do come see, I can still stay in touch with some. They've graduated many years ago. They'll come, say, have coffee, or some come have lunch with you. And so, it's great. It's just great memories that were created in that time. And, life goes on, but it's nice to kind of reconnect and see people that it's been a long time.
Yeah, the work is hard. Putting on a show like this is a lot of work.
Yeah.
It's expensive, but it's a brain cramp. There's so much to put together a show like this, but the relationships with the students is really where the joy is.
Yeah.
And maintaining those relationships over the years and watching them grow and thinking of all these these kids that are married with kids now and making their way in the world, and it's pretty awesome to watch and see. But relationships with the kids, getting to speak into their lives and kind of give them a gentle nudge in a direction.
So just wait till you have your first blue and gold, your first alumni who comes back
Yes.
with their son or daughter who's in one of
How
your
old
shows.
would I be at that point?
Well, the first
We're
ones
not
at
far
the Plano
off.
campus are in 6th grade right now.
Oh, okay. I didn't know that.
Yes.
So-
So they're
Maybe.
coming.
There you
They
go.
are
You'd
coming.
be like, I had your mom or dad.
Oh,
in
wow.
show.
That would be weird.
That's
Yeah.
kind of,
In a good way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's so cool. Well, we appreciate the time.
Thank you.
So thanks for reminiscing and thanks for the work that you guys do.
Yes.
I know you've made a huge impact, not just in our school and the community, but in the lives of these students.
Absolutely.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks for listening to another episode of Life Talk. I pray that God is doing something amazing in your life, and I want to make sure that we stay connected. Check out the show notes below for more information. Remember, you are loved by a good God. Be blessed and walk in a manner worthy of His calling. Until next time.